So now to the important part of the presentation, who our professors are and what they're going to be telling you about tonight. So we have quite a few representatives here, which is a really unique and fun opportunity for all of you. So I encourage you to ask them questions in the chat as they're going through their slides. But from our Department of English, we have Dr. Claver and Dr. Scheibel. So they are, again, two professors who teach different things, who will tell you about their different interests. And then we also, from our Department of Writing Studies, Rhetoric, and Composition, have Dr. Barry and Dr. Gilfus, who will also be kind of chatting with you about the program, who also have their own unique interests and teach on different topics. So they'll be sharing a little bit about that with you tonight. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to the Department of English. Dr. Claver is going to control the slides from this point.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I didn't know I was going to go first, but here I am. No, that's great. So I'm just going to go. My name is Corinne Claver, and I'm the chair of the Department of English. I teach 19th century British literature, which are these long novels that some of them are like 1,000 pages long. Dickens, George Eliot. Right now I'm teaching a course called Reading the Brontes. So we're doing novels by the three Bronte sisters, Anne, Emily, and Charlotte, and then some kind of contemporary rewritings of the Brontes. And because I'm department chair, I'm only teaching one class right now, but I am teaching that. I also teach this introductory class to the major. So our major, which I'll go through the PowerPoint slides in a little bit, but I want to, after I introduce myself, but our major is a little unusual for a lot of English majors. And so our introductory course is a kind of course that focuses on close reading and introducing students to a range of theoretical frameworks and critical terms and tools that for understanding literature in a way that might be similar to how you did it and are doing it in high school, and might be somewhat different. And with that, I'm going to allow Will to introduce Professor Scheibel to introduce himself as well.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. As Professor Claver said, I'm Will Scheibel. I'm an associate professor in the Department of English. I teach film and screen studies. So film and screen studies is actually a track within the English department. It's not a separate major. Film is taught in a range of different places on this campus in different ways. And what is distinctive about the way we teach film in the English department is that we approach film and visual media in terms of texts. So we're interested in critical film and media studies. We look at films, television shows, digital games as texts that can be interpreted, that can be read, very similar to reading novels, short stories, plays, things like that. So we are very much side by side the literary folks in the department, and I'm happy to talk a little bit more about the particular emphases in film and screen studies, the classes that we teach, and the other people that I work with more closely who teach film and media. But I don't know if Corinne wants to go through the slides first, or is that?
Yeah, let me go ahead.
Sure.
So English, our major is actually English and textual studies. So, and as you can see, it really is acknowledging that when we think about text these days, we're thinking about something much broader than the Victorian novel or a Shakespeare play. And so that is embedded in the title of our major. So really kind of looking at that. Some of the opportunities for our undergraduates, we have certain internships that are kind of specifically for our majors. A lot of our students also participate in other majors. Many of our students study abroad, and particularly in Florence or London. We have a distinction program that is like a lot of honors within the department that students develop and write honors, a kind of distinction thesis their last year in the program. the International English Honor Society is Sigma Tau Delta. Creative writing is, I saw that one of the people here, Carolyn, I think it is interested in creative writing. We're in this cusp right now between having a creative writing concentration and having a creative writing major. And right now, because we're in had to deactivate the concentration in order to create the major, and then COVID hit. So right now that major is hung up in an approval process with New York State, but we presume it will go forward. We also have film writing clubs, etc. So you can see that sometimes we get a lot more from parents than from students about pushback on what are you going to do with an English major? And there's lots of jokes that your parents probably hear on Prairie Home Companion about the English major, but we have people in all fields, as you can see there. And we're happy to connect you with alums in all of those fields as well. We also have, you can see there's support for people doing pre-law and pre-med. This is some of the titles of the both critical work and creative work of our faculty here. One of the things that the couple of our courses, our new courses, we have a science fiction course, a hip hop course, which I'm happy to talk a little bit more about, and game studies course, interpretation of games. So that's one of the things in the Professor Cybro's film and screen studies track. One of the things that is really distinctive about our department, or strong and our department. I don't think it's that distinctive because I imagine writing and rhetoric is very similar, and a lot of the humanities are. Most of our faculty have, while they're primarily appointed in English, they also have specialties in interdisciplinary fields. So most of our faculty also work in, say, the Latin American Studies Latinx program, in Women and Gender Studies, the LGBTQRX Studies, Lesbian Gay Studies minor, Asian American Studies minor. So many of our courses are designed to fill in those minors, and our faculty are regularly doing work in those fields. So there is a really vibrant interdisciplinary nature to our department. So with that, I'm going to let Will talk a little bit more about the film and screen studies. And if at any point you guys want to hear more about some of these courses in the Q&A, I'm happy to go in, but I don't want to take too much time. Will?
Thanks. Yeah, the film and screen studies track tries to be pretty comprehensive, and we try to cover the broad areas of the field among 3 full-time film and screen studies faculty members. So I cover the US narrative, film, and television courses. That's my area of specialization, in particular, the historical period of classical Hollywood cinema, which is from the late 1920s up to the early 1960s. I specialize in that kind of cinema and issues of acting and star studies. So I teach classes on movie stars, on performance, issues of celebrity culture. My colleague, Professor Roger Hallis, is the documentary and world cinema expert in the department. He teaches classes on the history of world cinema, documentary and photography, and their relationship between film and photography, the media of witnessing, courses on media and activism. Chris Hansen is the digital media or new media specialist in the department. He teaches a lot on game studies, video games, very popular area in the department. We have a lab in the Byrd Library. It's not the English department's lab, it's the SU's lab, the digital scholarship space, where he teaches some of his classes where students, quite literally play video games for class. There's a fair amount of overlap between and among those three areas, but they're also distinct. And so if students work with the three of us, they'll get a broad base in kind of the major areas of the field. So I'm happy to, if students want to reach out to me by email, I'm happy to put my email in the chat and send you more information about the very specific classes that we're offering next semester or the next academic year. And I'm also happy to answer questions about previous courses that we've taught and the sort of facilities on campus and in New York State for doing research in film.
So I did get a private message in the chat that maybe it would be good to jump into before we wrap up, for English at least. And then I'm sure we'll get questions throughout that the departments can jointly answer at the end of the presentation. But a student wanted to know, what is your favorite class to teach? So I don't think it matters if this is what you think is the coolest class. Maybe it is, those two are generally connected. But again, the professors and I students talked about this a little bit before the presentation. Like, they have very different interests from each other. Not every person who cares about English cares about the same things at all. So it's nice for you to kind of see the differences between our faculty and then imagine, how that plays out in other faculty members. And if there are other faculty, kind of like Dr. Scheigel did, if you want to talk about other faculty in the department and what their weird and unique interests are, that would be great as well.
So I'm going to jump in here. So my favorite class to teach these days is actually a class that's not, one of the nice things about our curriculum is because it's so flexible, it allows us to kind of creatively kind of develop new areas of interest and specialization in our teaching as our own interests develop. So I teach a course called Reading Feeling. And so using theories of feeling and emotion and looking at different texts, and mostly text, just because I'm not as skilled as our film and screen studies people in doing visual media, but talking about how texts kind of create emotional relationships, create emotions, contribute to the emotional worlds of our society, and participate in those, and can create emotional realities, and then create emotional relationships between us. One of the sections in that is that in that course, my favorite section is probably animal affects, where we have a section where we talk about reading texts about animals and animal feelings and things like that. So that's one of my favorite courses.
Very cool.
And I really enjoy teaching the introductory lecture classes. They're very survey based. I mean, they don't focus on any one particular area. But my American film history class from beginnings to present, which starts in the 1890s and goes all the way up to the current decade. I really enjoy giving students that expansive history. I love teaching interpretation of film, which is the kind of nuts and bolts. These are the formal elements of film. This is the vocabulary. This is how you read a scene, a sequence, an entire film. At the upper division, I would say my favorite class that I teach is on film noir, which is sort of a concept that we spend all semester trying to figure out, what is this? Is it a genre? Is it a style? Is it a period of film history? Basically, movies set in Los Angeles, New York City, black and white, very stylized cinematography, rainy streets, detectives, people smoking cigarettes in nightclubs. We look at films, we look at jazz music, we look at television, we look at film noir across media. And that I think is probably my favorite special topics class that I teach.
And then I have one other point that I'd like to zoom in on a little bit that you mentioned, Dr. Klaver, earlier in your presentation, which is how and why English majors are employed. Because that is I think a misconception among not only parents, but like you mentioned, some students. Now that I work in higher ed and I see what our students do, I certainly don't have that misconception, and I'm happy to ramble about it. But I think that, you know, the faculty might be even more skilled in talking about what kind of skills English students have, how that translates to a very wide, you know, you have a great list here, array of career paths. And if you have any examples of specific students in mind, you know where they are now and what they're doing. I'm sure, you know, both of you probably do. That would be good to know.
We have, I mean, I think of two students right off the top of my head, who are doing things that you wouldn't expect of English majors. One started a nonprofit called She's the First, about the first being the first girls, a global nonprofit about girls' education globally. And then a former student of mine who I just bump into in the community is works at the local credit union, the non-for-profit credit union, and does communications and is like a manager for that. And she was an English major. So those are just two people. I mean, we have tons of people a lot of our students who do the film and screen studies track or the film and screen studies minor are also dual majors, or have an ETS minor and they're majoring in television and radio film at Newhouse. So a lot of people are doing magazine journalism through Newhouse, television, radio, film, and Will teaches those students more than me. So there's a lot of those students in those fields, as well as students who go into library and from science and things like that. A lot of lawyers. Yeah, Will, do you want to talk about a couple students?
Sure. This is my 5th year at Syracuse, so I haven't really tracked like a huge number of students in terms of what they've gone on to do after graduating from our program. As Professor Claver said, most of my students are some kind of combination of English and radio, TV, film over in the Newhouse Communications School. So I have a lot of students that pursue jobs in filmmaking, in television production. They want to have careers in the industry. So they move on, move to New York City, move to LA, and will apply these critical skills to their creative practice. Basic communication skills, writing skills that even just help them, interact with other professionals in addition to making media. So there's that. I have students that are really interested in film reviewing. I have an affiliated appointment at the Goldring Arts Journalism program in Newhouse, where I advise master's students there. So a lot of students will take our classes in film analysis and film history, and also the magazine and newspaper classes in Newhouse, and want to go on to become film reviewers. That's become more of a sort of freelance gig these days. So usually that has to be kind of combined with something else. But I did have at least one student who is now a freelance film reviewer and writes for like the Playlist and One Perfect Shot and various film and media websites. And then finally, graduate school. I have a lot of students that want to go on and get masters or PhDs in film studies. I just recently wrote a letter of recommendation for somebody who got into the master's program at SUNY Buffalo. I'm working with a student right now who has a long list of schools she wants to apply to. So those are the 3 kind of professional tracks that I see students going to.
That's really helpful. And students, if you're not already picking this up, maybe you noticed this, maybe for those of you interested in doing this, the few comments about it stood out to you. Syracuse is really a place where students take on a variety of different interests. So a lot of the students in our English and our Writing and Rhetoric program don't want to just read for the sake of reading, don't want to write for the sake of writing. They have a cause they care about, or a career that they care about. A reason for analyzing text, a reason for thinking about film, a reason for writing. So often we see students learning skills through the programs we're talking about tonight and applying them to another field altogether. So law, for example, is a great example of that. Medicine. students want to go into illustrating textbooks for medical professions, right? So they need that communications background, but they need to know a lot about biology too. So across the board, whether it's STEM, humanities, different professional programs at Syracuse, we absolutely see students doing the programs we're talking about tonight, tagging on other things. So don't get into the headspace that you're here tonight to pick one of these programs and think never again about any of the other programs at Syracuse. That's not what our students do. I think about 30% of our students end up changing their mind about what they're majoring in college. 50% of students in the College of Arts and Sciences pursue another major alongside the major they come in with. 75% of Arts and Sciences students at least do a minor. So be thinking and be keeping, your mind open to other opportunities at Syracuse in addition to the programs we're talking about tonight, because statistically speaking, it's more likely that you'll do this and something else than any of the programs that we're talking about tonight alone.
Let me just jump in there. One of the, Jillian, I can't answer your question about the pre-law path because there are I don't exactly know what that is, but I know that the biggest major that is a double major in the College of Arts and Sciences with English is political science.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing a lot of those students are law. That must be a pre-law kind of packaging. And in study abroad, I don't know how much you guys know about English, the SU's study abroad program, but we have these centers. And because we have these centers, students can actually make significant progress toward their degree requirements while studying abroad. There's not a lot of courses in London. A lot of our students go to London because you can get like 3 upper division English courses, ETS, English and Textual Studies courses while you are abroad, including your pre-1900 requirements. Distribution. So that, and the other, just the final thing, and I know I'm talking about our major, because our major is very flexible and we don't say like, you have to take this survey course followed by this survey course followed by this survey course. There's a lot of flexibility for students, for you all to go ahead and do a double major or a dual degree with School of Information Studies or Newhouse, Visual and Performing Arts. So because and one of the reasons that we've resisted kind of demands to make our requirements more stringent is because so many of our students are really doing so many different things and they can't do all those things and get their degree and fulfill their degree requirements.
So I would like to talk a little bit more about pre-law at the end of the presentation, because I think that's equally interesting to our writing and rhetoric students as it is to our English students. I'm sure some of the writing and rhetoric people in the room are kind of happy someone asked about pre-law. It's very common among students who are interested in communication. And we will talk a little bit more about study abroad at the end of the presentation as well, because I think, again, equally interesting. I see a question just coming in, which I will answer while Dr. Barry gets his slides up, because we are going to move on to writing and rhetoric. But yes, you can have majors and minors across the schools and colleges. Syracuse offers over 100 minors, and any of them can be paired with the majors we're discussing tonight. So if it's a minor in dance, go for it. A minor in food studies, great, right? A minor in computer science, wonderful. Doesn't have to be related at all to what your major is, which is a huge benefit of being at Syracuse. And again, kind of contributes to that trademark Syracuse thing that I was talking about earlier, with students really combining unique interests, and then they tell us why that makes sense, right? We're not telling students what they can and cannot combine at Syracuse. So with that, I'll pass it over to Dr. Barry and Dr. Gilfus to talk to you about writing and rhetoric.
Welcome, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be with you today, and it's great to hear, even to be in a room with our colleagues and hear about the wonderful courses being offered in English. I've been at Syracuse since 2011, after working for 14 years in magazine publishing. And right now I'm teaching a class in creative nonfiction. It actually feels like one of my favorite classes. I think in the context of this pandemic, students really appreciate to have the community, have a space where they can build community and just reflect on what's going on. And I'll talk also a little later on about another course that I do that I think might really be my #1 favorite. Johnny, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Jonna Gilfus. I've been in the writing department a very long time, 20 plus years, and I actually graduated as an undergraduate from Syracuse University. So I can say, with experience, that it's a great place to spend your undergraduate time. Um, I currently serve as director of undergraduate studies. So I train the TAs in our program, and I like to teach our first year lower division courses like the opening writing course that everyone at the university gets. And I actually love that course. It shifts the conversation often for students who came out of high school imagining that there was one kind of writing, and they get a chance to write about things that interest them in the world and think about how to make arguments they want to make. So that's the kind of work I do.
When students talk about the writing and rhetoric major, one of the comments that comes up again and again is like a deep appreciation, not only for the practical skills, because as we talk about this, you're gonna hear about a lot of ways that you sort of going to acquire skills that might be potentially useful to you across a broad range of fields and often with a broad range of maybe other majors or minors. But students sometimes report back to us their appreciation of finding themselves, like thinking of the major not simply as something we're doing to get somewhere else, but as a way of just coming to sort of know who they are as a reader and writer in the world. And so let me tell you a little bit about the types of classes that we offer here. So in this in our current state of the world, I suspect you probably would agree with me that argumentative writing is probably more important now than ever before. There is such division in our country, and being able to sort of develop skills as a writer that does more than just blurt out an argument, but really persuades, that demonstrates listening. As you go on in your classes at the university, you'll find that you have a broad range of classes where you're going to be asked to make arguments. And yet at the same time, what we do in our department is we'll sort of help students like slow down and really help imagine how arguments can take different shapes in different contexts, including digital contexts. We also have a really strong connection to civic writing, and this is writing connected to public advocacy. A lot of our faculty have expertise in the community. We have a really strong veterans writing group. We have senior center. I actually do work where students make connections with incarcerated writers, and also a broad range of public sector positions. So sort of thinking about writing as a way of doing work in the world and making a difference. You'll see classes like that. I mentioned creative nonfiction. That's a very strong area in our department. Students love those classes, and they kind of love the supportive network that comes from that and the sense of community. We're also working, and actually we're working with our colleagues in English, so you'll find that there's going to be some nice synergy between the two. In fact, oftentimes students, it's common to find a student majoring in one and minoring in the other, or double majoring. But we have a lot of our faculty have expertise in sort of digital publishing, digital communication, the digital humanities, and students really learn how to sort of write not simply with words, but write with audio, write with multimedia, to sort of create a web presence, to sort of try to work on some sort of public campaign. And so we have some classes like that. And then we also have a professional and technical writing minor and a broad range of courses, thinking about how we might communicate information that is factual, where getting it right is so critically important. And those skills really translate for a broad range of careers. We've had students that go on to jobs like working for the FBI, working for a broad range of businesses, and they really reach back to these courses. In addition to that, we have courses in research-based courses, science courses, and I'll say just mention a couple of exciting courses that we have coming up that would be really good for first-year students. We have a course that will likely be on the books. It's going through the approval process now, called Writing Rhetoric and Satire. So satire could be an area. We have courses in wellness, health and wellness coming up. We have a course in writing, rhetoric, and social action. So there's really like a broad range of ways to find a segue there and to sort of build community. Jana, maybe you could take us through some of the types of jobs people go to?
Sure. Thanks, Patrick. So I really value secondary education just for its own sake, but you and your parents are probably wondering what your major, as our colleagues in English talked about, what a major in writing and rhetoric might offer in terms of career possibilities. And I think one of the things students really like about our majors, the fact that they can shape it toward a wide variety of careers. And I'm just going to share a link really quickly with you in the chat. That is some stories of our, oops, hold on a second, I'm sorry. Some stories of our alums and oops, I did it twice. Some stories of our alums. You're welcome to take a look at those while I sort of talk through some of these and highlight them. So if you have opened the link, you can probably see that careers in communication and public relations are a popular route for many of our majors. So for example, Callie Malhotra is a global communications associate for Estee Lauder, and she used her major to launch into the world of beauty PR. It's interesting, there's more than one major that went into beauty PR. Marketing is another career that many alum find our major prepares them for. And like our colleagues in English, but sometimes this is because there's a double major or a major and a minor between Newhouse. But Courtney Kavanagh shared that her writing major gave her confidence in her abilities, sort of gave her like an array of techniques, both digital and communication and writing, that she said changed her career. Courtney's a social media coordinator with Brownstoner based in Brooklyn. Some of our majors go into careers in research. Timothy Larach is an associate economist with the Federal Reserve Bank in Chicago. You can see he's responsible for assisting senior economists with their research. And he told us about how learning how to produce and structure coherent arguments helped him a lot in his ability to learn and write code for data analysis and in the research projects he's assigned there at the Federal Reserve Bank. Some other highlights, community engagement is another piece that we find our majors really are interested in. So Chelsea DeBase is an example. She calls herself a civil rights activist. She's a development coordinator for the National Association of Urban Debate Leagues, a nonprofit that focuses on bringing debate leagues to urban, low-income schools. So through our major, she learned some of these skills, but her job is fundraising, researching, writing grant proposals, planning events, creating newsletters, flyers. And one of the things I thought was really interesting is Chelsea said that she was offered the job because the organization was impressed with her writing background, and they really needed somebody in the development office with a strong written voice. So in addition to some of these experiences I'm highlighting here, you'll see that there are many students who go on to careers with writing and editing. And Dr. Barry will talk a little bit more about a super cool class he runs that my son actually took last year and loved, where they can learn a lot more about that. Technology and design, we have some very strong professors in our department who are specialized in technology and design and education. And like English, a lot of our majors go on to different types of graduate programs, law school, medical school, higher ed. And they've noted, I think, that the internships and other opportunities offer a lot of valuable experience. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So one I wanted to point out was Emily Gilson. She studied law at American University Washington College of Law. And she actually says she credits her ability to analyze and see connections between fields and points of view quickly to her time as a writing major. And she recommends to everybody that you go out and socialize and network, because you never know what opportunities may arise. And I know it's a little difficult right now to imagine that with COVID, but Professor Berry will tell us a little bit about some of the opportunities that are out there. So yeah, just sort of highlighting some of the things that you could do with a writing and rhetoric major, hopefully will help you see the direction that you might take.
Thank you, Jana. All right. So to sort of wrap up, I want to stress that one of the things that we really care a lot about is a way to sort of build a major where people are building community, they're getting involved. And I want to just close by mentioning just a few of those opportunities. For really maybe around 5 years or so now, we have the Writing Rhetoric Student Organization. This is an organization that's open to anyone on campus, but it lives in our it's founded by students in our department, and it's for anyone who loves writing and writing broadly conceived. And this group, and there are some pictures from their socials that are on the page, they come together for things that are really practical. They do alumni networks. They conduct workshops on professional writing and communication. They bring in big speakers to campus. A spoken word artist was here about a year ago, and more recently, in the time of COVID, they're doing these virtual sessions. Just the last one they did was a Halloween poetry event. I missed that one, but I guess the thing I want to point out is that there are opportunities for people to have fun, but also gain some really practical skills. So all right, so the course that is my favorite course to teach is Writing 340. It's a course that ultimately puts together an anthology of the best writing in our department. It's supported by an iLearn grant that gives students real-world experience while taking the course. And so students take this class and they learn skills as copy editors. They get a chance to meet professional copy editors. They get a chance to design pages using InDesign. So the pictures on the left, that's a sample cover and a layout that students designed. So you begin the class with a bunch of manuscripts, and you actually end the class with a physical magazine in hand. And we have a launch party where writers share their work and read there. So that's like one opportunity. Some students who take that class oftentimes list it as an internship, and they oftentimes becomes like a segue to other opportunities in publishing. And then as part of the writing major, you can do an internship and get writing credit that counts for the degree. Our students are working in publishing. Sometimes our students are doing education work. I take students, for example, to the Auburn Correctional Center, if that's your thing. We have students going on for digital communication. They're working for local community banks, for a refugee center. They're doing some PR work. They're doing writing promotional material. And so there's a broad range of organizations, and you can apply to those organizations and find the one that's right for you. And then you'll get credit that becomes part of your degree, so that all students who are interested in that end the semester with some really concrete experience. Yeah, so I think maybe I'll end there, and we can maybe open it up to some questions.
Fantastic. So I do have a couple questions that I want to touch on, and as promised, students, if you have specific questions about writing and rhetoric, please let me know. A lot of times they end up coming up as we're talking about other things. So just keep them coming into the chat if you have questions. I'd like to first touch on the topic of pre-law, because like I mentioned earlier, I think that's interesting to many of you. There are certainly a ton of pre-law students at Syracuse. No shortage of social justice warriors, social issue advocates, students out in the community. And I think that translates to a lot of students wanting to go to law school. And yes, that is very common among writing and rhetoric students. You know, rhetoric is a huge piece of what you do in law school, as is writing. And then with English, you're really learning a lot of those skills that you'll need to analyze texts, difficult texts in law school. So it's certainly both of these programs give you skills that you can use in law school. And in terms of how these majors turn into pre-law, I'm sure that many of you have thought of or attended virtual sessions with universities and colleges that have pre-law majors. And at Syracuse, we do not have a pre-law major. That doesn't make sense because the things that you learn related to law happen in law school. Your job as an undergraduate student is to find out what motivates you and then go into law in that topic, right? So students at Syracuse can choose any major they want. They can double major, they can do those minors that we talked about earlier, and simultaneously they are pre-law. And that just is a matter of having a conversation with your advisor, starting as early as possible. As soon as you start thinking you might want to go to law school, you let your advisor know and you are assigned a pre-law advisor. What your pre-law advisor then does is helps you create a list of law schools that you want to apply to, helps you know what they want to see. That will include very good performance in your academic majors, community engagement, probably an internship experience, maybe some undergraduate research, maybe some published work. So they're going to identify all these things you need to do. Your undergraduate major, depending what it is, will check many of those boxes. And then you'll have to fill in the gaps of things that you didn't do with your undergraduate major. None of our majors will give you every single requirement that you need for law school. That's why you have electives, and that's why you can kind of be flexible with the courses that you're taking. So any of you could be a pre-law student at Syracuse. It has absolutely no relationship to what major you choose. Choose something that motivates you, something that you think will set you up for a variety of careers where you're using skills that you enjoy using. And if that ends up being law school, wonderful. We'll coach you through the things you need to do to be thinking about law school, again, side by side with the things that you're doing with your major. We've had students do all different kinds of majors at Syracuse, but absolutely, and then go to law school, but absolutely writing and rhetoric and English are very common. And then the other topic, I don't know if either of our writing and rhetoric professors want to chime in on study abroad, because I know our English professors did. If you know of students, places they've gone, places that are popular, study abroad, I saved for the end because, again, it has no necessary relationship to the major that you choose. Syracuse offers a whole suite of options that I can talk at length about, that I will pare down my talking points on for the purpose of this presentation. But if our writing and rhetoric professors would like to talk about any abroad opportunities that you think are particularly cool or interesting to your students, now would be a great time.
Yeah, I guess this summer, well, it was supposed, we'll see what's going to happen this summer, but we were planning to offer Writing 205. So Writing 205 is the second semester sophomore course. And that course has been repackaged and it's being taught. It's taught sometimes in Madrid, sometimes in London. And it's usually taught around the theme of writing the city, of spending time writing about the city, doing research in connection with the city. So students really love that because they're fulfilling a requirement for the university while also really taking a course that's really fun. Another course that we're planning right now is Writing 307, which is professional writing. And that class also is thinking about what does it mean to write in a global context? What does it mean to move there? I think SU has one of the best study abroad programs. And so I think it's really a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And I do know that, I mean, Corin, I don't know if you want to say it, but I know there's one course in your department in particular that students really, really love. Do you know which one I'm thinking of? It's, oh, you're muted.
An SU Abroad course?
SU Abroad course by,
is that Mike Good's class?
Mike Good's class, yes.
Oh yeah, so we have these courses where they're mostly main campus courses, and then over spring break, you go to you use that one. It becomes a 1 credit study abroad course, and he has an Austin course, and then he has a Mysteries of London course. So he does 2 different courses in that mode. Of course, both of those have been suspended, but the Austin course is particularly popular for yes.
Yeah, and so I think whatever major you choose, there's really a broad range of wonderful, wonderful courses there, and you'll be able, with either major, you'll be able to get credit in the department. Sometimes there might be courses that are being offered by another department that can count for whatever major you choose as well. You can sometimes petition them.
So yeah, study abroad, I'm not surprised it came up in the chat, is very popular at Syracuse. So a lot of students apply to Syracuse because of our study abroad programs. Do I agree with that decision? No, but students do it, right? They really just want to study abroad with us. And at Syracuse, we're ranked number 11th in the country for the quality of our study abroad programs. And that's an impressive ranking given the number of universities in the US. We send students abroad during the academic year just for spring break, sometime over the summer. Students do internships abroad. Like Dr. Klaver mentioned, we have specific courses abroad. Like Dr. Berry mentioned, students can fulfill a lot of the requirements for their majors while they're abroad if they want to. So study abroad is not just taking a hiatus from your major, as much as, you know, by the time you're a junior or senior might welcome that opportunity. It's not. It's a way to translate your major to a different context and strengthen your skills. And that's what we see students in all of our majors doing with their study abroad experiences. So I think we've had some great examples of places that are popular among students. Just means they're popular. Doesn't mean that's what you have to do. Students can go anywhere they want abroad. The only thing that will limit them is if they aren't getting good advice from their academic advisors, because let's say they wait to start planning this until they're a junior, and now they have this, this, and this that they have to take to graduate. If those aren't offered abroad, they can get a little stuck. So it's best if you know you want to go abroad, or just start having these conversations, whether you're sure about it or not. If you want to go abroad, talk to your academic advisor early, make sure that you're planning your courses accordingly. If you end up wanting to stay and not go abroad, that's fine. You'll still graduate on time, but just start making those plans early, and then you can go wherever you want and you can kind of expand your skills with your major while you're abroad. I got another private question kind of while we were chatting a few minutes ago about the average class size. Mm-hmm. I would like to warn students against worrying about average class size. At Syracuse, it's 26. Your experience is not an average of all the classes you are in. It is a series of distinct experiences in different classes. So I'd like to have members of each department talk about maybe the largest number of students might encounter in your department and the smallest number of students might encounter. I think that's a better, if you have an average, that's fine, but I don't think it's as relevant to real life as, you know, you might immediately think.
All our courses are capped at 20. It's always the same. We never go beyond 20 under any circumstance.
And we're different. We have developed some lecture courses, and I'll let Will talk about those, but our average course size for English is probably about 20, but it ranges from 15 to 25, except for specific courses that are designated as lecture courses. And then you're specifically opting into those. And we make a certain number of those available each semester. Just so that we can meet student demands. And those are our most popular courses. And but otherwise you're going to be in a course that, a class that is about 20 to 25 students. Will, go ahead. You teach the lecture course.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, my upper division classes, like the film noir class that I talked about, that would be capped at 25, and you know, that's standard for our department. But I think the largest classes in the department are the 100 level film and media studies lecture classes, which are capped anywhere from 80 to 120 students, which actually is fairly small as large lecture classes in film studies go. When I was a TA at Indiana, we had a class of 240 students, and at, you know, UCLA and NYU, it's even bigger than that. So that sounds like a large size, but the way that we establish kind of instructor contact with the students is that the professors give lectures twice a week in those classes, kind of covering the material broadly. And then the students meet in discussion sections at the end of the week with a graduate teaching assistant. And those sections are never more than about 20 students. And so they're still able to get FaceTime with an instructor. You know, it's not the same instructor that's giving the lectures, but it still gives them a chance to actually talk about what they're learning, and get to know their peers in a small group setting. So that's one of the reasons I like those classes so much, is I think they're kind of the best of both worlds. You get sort of a, you know, a lot of information, but then you also have time to talk about it, which is part of the way you learn the information.
And the writing courses in our department are smaller, even than the 25. So if you take basically the sophomore writing fiction workshop, sophomore poetry workshop, I think those might have a different name now, but those are probably capped at 15, and definitely the advanced fiction, poetry, and nonfiction, creative nonfiction classes are those are capped at 15 seminar kind of style workshop classes.
So I think that should be useful information for all of you. I know that as high school students, you hear the word lecture and you kind of seize, right? It's not always a bad thing. It teaches you good skills to be in a lecture setting, on taking notes, on how to maintain your attention, all of that good stuff. And then like Dr. Scheibel mentioned, you'll break out and you'll do different things with TAs and with to reinforce what you're learning in lectures. But it's good to know that in your department, lectures are classes that students opt into. That's not the case for many of the departments at Syracuse. You're going to have to take some lectures and that's it. So that's a nice thing for you all to know. So it looks like we're wrapping up just right on time. We have 5 minutes remaining. That probably means we could answer one more question if we do it quickly. And so if we get one more question, I will pitch that to our professors. Otherwise, we will log out here in just a minute. The closing info I just want to give to each of you is, first, what I think a logical next step for our students is, which is to learn more from current students. So I think I give you the most generic information, our faculty give you even better information, but I think current students do even better because they are so closely related to you and your mindset right now, and then they remember very well what it was like, coming in and what kind of questions you have. So I'll leave in the chat where you can follow Syracuse students on Instagram. Professors, if you are willing to converse with students via email, if you could leave your email addresses in the chat at this point, I will give mine there too, so that you can reach out to any of us with your questions. Again, I'm a good person to reach out to about the Common App, admissions requirements, general questions if you're not sure who to ask about the departments tonight. But our faculty are often able and willing to answer specific questions about the department for prospective students. So don't be shy with reaching out. Your questions are going to change over the next few months as you get deeper into your college applications and you learn more about other schools. So we expect you'll have different questions, maybe even right after you log out tonight and you're laying in bed and something pops into your mind that you wish you would have asked. Be in touch with us about that for sure. And then before we log out, I'd also like to thank our faculty who spent their time with us tonight. Students, this is not the job of any professor at Syracuse to sit with an admissions person from home, especially after work hours, especially. So I'd like you to each thank them in the chat for their time, give them a thumbs up, let them know you appreciated them being here. I know you learned a lot, way more than I could have given you tonight. So you should really be appreciative of their time. I'm certainly very appreciative for the 4 of you for being here tonight. It makes my job so much easier, and I learned a ton during this session. So again, thank you for being here, students and faculty, and I hope to see you all again soon.
Nice to meet you all. And I did put in the chat our distinction. One of the things is we have a list of our distinction projects. And do you guys have a distinction project, a distinction program? So I just discovered, because I'm writing this report as chair, that our list of topics, our titles, is 4 years out of date. So check back on that in a few weeks as we get, we have to go, the university makes us go through their system to get everything updated. So we're working on that process right now. So that'll give you a sense of some of the things that our students work on. So a lot of our students do like film and screen studies, theses, or anything. Like I've had a couple students who've gotten interested in things from my classes and then wanted to write a thesis on that or take in a specific direction.
Absolutely, that's a great option for students to follow up. If any of you want me to export the chat and send it to you, minus the private messages I received, I'm happy to do that so you can have all these links in your email and the things that you'd like to follow up on later. I'm happy to email you that, just let me know. So again, we'll talk to you all soon. Thank you so much.
Bye, thank you all. Nice to meet you.